One of the behind the scenes principles of the offshore world is reputation. Anyone you deal with in the offshore world is going to ask themselves, what do I know about this person's reputation? And so in this video, I'm going to walk with you through several of the things that banks and other institutions are going to consider when working with you. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson. If you're looking for help creating your Nomad Capitalist strategy, you want to work with my team and I, you can go to nomadcapitalist.com and learn more. And in this video, I want to share with you how your banker views you, how a potential citizenship program might view you, how really anything in the offshore world is going to perceive you as a person. And what I want to focus on in this video is your nationality, because your nationality says a lot about you, like it or not, to a lot of the people that you're going to do business with in the offshore space around the world. Because banks, for example, have KYC, know your customer requirements. They have to know who they're dealing with. They're accountable. Yes, some of the big banks are able to get away with murder. You see them getting fined. They're doing all kinds of shady stuff. But the average bank that you'd like to work with, they have to be compliant. And that means that by keeping the bad apples out, you and all the other people with that bank, for example, are going to have a good experience. The same thing goes for citizenship programs. I recently had someone come to me who, he himself is a Westerner. He has 2 great passports, but he recently married an Iranian. And they want to travel around the world. Obviously, Iran is not a great passport. They're looking for a passport program, and they came to me because they said, hey, we want to know all the options available for an Iranian, because we hear a lot of these countries, including the citizenship by investment countries that generally are pretty receptive, even some of those countries don't take Iranians. And so your nationality is something that you really want to be aware of. There are 3 categories that a bank, for example, might look at when considering your nationality. Trusted, tolerated, and distrusted. I saw this myself just recently firsthand when I called up one of my bankers and I said, hey, I recently got married, and Mrs. H would like to get a couple bank accounts just to be able to move money back and forth, spend money in our daily lives. And he said, yeah, you know what, great, we'd be happy to help your wife get an account. He said, what is her nationality? I said, well, she's a dual citizen, but her primary nationality is Russian. Oh, he said, that's going to be a bit more difficult. Maybe you want to find a country where they specialize in Russians, because we don't really know about Russians, and like for our compliance is like, be careful, right? Now, that doesn't mean that Russians can't bank anywhere. No, I would say that in a lot of countries, Russians fall into the distrusted category. Obviously, some folks in Russia are sanctioned. I don't think my wife falls into that category as just a doctor. But Russia is a passport. People look at it in some countries, ooh. And that's why there are certain banks in countries like Austria, in that part of the world, where they specialize in Russians and people from that part of the world that have distrust issues in a lot of other places, and they super serve that market. And so I want you to be cognizant of this. I know there's going to be people who are going to say, who cares? Who are they to judge me? Listen, if you want to run an offshore business that saves you money on taxes, if you want to get a second passport, if you want to do any of these different things, unfortunately, much as I also dislike it, you're going to have to deal with bureaucracy, and you're going to have to answer some questions. I understand that it's not what you want to do, but the nationality that you're from is important. Obviously, if you've been watching our videos for some period of time, you know that laws like FATCA have made it difficult for U.S. citizens to get bank accounts in a lot of places around the world, or even in places where they can't get bank accounts, they're somewhat limited, they can't make any investments. U.S. citizens are limited in terms of investing in many different foreign mutual funds or in certain projects. A lot of projects, including some of my friends' investments, try and limit the amount of U.S. citizens involved. So while the U.S. passport is generally viewed as trusted, banks and other institutions aren't going to reject U.S. citizens because they think they're shady. U.S. is generally perceived very well. People think of Americans as being very trustworthy, as being low risk, but there might be a governmental risk with things like FATCA. Okay, there are some banks that I deal with that have recently said, hey, we don't want to deal with UK citizens because of Brexit. I don't entirely understand how that works under the KYC, but that's simply been their policy. They say, hey, you know what? We do trust British people, but we're simply not able to work with them. And then again, there are banks and other institutions that work with certain types of clients. And so, if you're from Canada and they just super serve the Russian and CIS market, they're not going to want to work with you. Now, that's banking. That's also passport, okay? If you want to go and get a second passport somewhere, the same thing applies. I've often said that countries view themselves at a certain point in the pecking order. If they think your passport is better, they put you in the trusted column. If perhaps you're on the same level, they put you in the tolerated column. If they view you as below, they put you in the distrusted column, right? So go to a lot of countries in Eastern Europe. If you're a US citizen, German citizen, whatever, please come on in. We're happy to have you. Same in countries like Panama. If you show up with a Pakistan passport, suddenly a lot of doors are going to start slamming in your face because they don't really know and they're not willing to take the risk, and they know that there's some people in Pakistan who have bad intentions or some guy who has some corrupt money or whatever their impression is, and they're going to hold that against you. Now, getting a second passport sometimes helps with that. Doesn't always help. I mean, a U.S. citizen is always a U.S. citizen. You can't go to a bank and say, well, but I'm also Dominican. Well, no, you're also still a U.S. citizen until you renounce. But, the Iranian could get a Dominica passport and then open up more opportunities in some cases. It's not something that I personally work with, but it's something that I see being done. What I lastly want you to also consider, though, is while your nationality matters to banks and residence and citizenship programs, your companies, if you're having an offshore company, if you're reducing your taxes, if you're setting up your business in a global way, the country you incorporate in also serves as your company's passport. This is important because if you set up a company in the Marshall Islands, that's great. You have practically no filing requirements, there's no audit, and you can pretty much run the company however you see fit. There's no one that you're really accountable to. But as my father always said, everyone has a boss. And in this case, the boss is, does your company need a bank account? Well, most banks don't want to deal with the Marshall Islands. Does your company need a merchant account? Also going to be difficult, right? And so these are the kind of things that we solve here at Nomad Capitalist because people obviously want to go where they're treated best. They want an offshore company that gives them as much flexibility and as much ease as possible. They're tired of endless form filling and regulations and high taxes. But your company has its own passport. And if that country of incorporation has a low reputation in the world, you're going to run into problems. You're going to run into problems moving your money around. You're going to run into problems getting different accounts. It's just going to be a pain. And so what I want you to understand from this video is that reputation matters, and often reputation is perceived by the country from which you come from or the country that's on the documents. You don't have to agree with it. This is how a lot of the people in this world of the bureaucracy of obtaining global citizenship, it's how they look at things. They have stereotypes that aren't always true. And so it's simply a matter of finding the best institutions that serve your profile, but also being aware that no matter what your profile is, risk adversity is always something that bureaucracy is looking for. And if you can give that to them, you're going to have a lot easier time putting your Nomad Capitalist plans in place. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson from Nomad Capitalist. I wrote this book, which you can find on Amazon, to distill a lot of the stuff we talk about in these videos and a lot of the stuff I've learned over the last decade plus traveling all around the world, teaching you about how to legally reduce your taxes, build your personal freedom, and create wealth faster. Definitely get a copy of this book if you want to learn more. Now, if you want to watch more videos, make sure you subscribe to our channel and make sure you click the notifications bell so you never miss one of our new videos with more tips on how to go where you're treated best. And if you're already a 6- or 7-figure entrepreneur and you'd like to put these strategies in place for yourself, go to nomadcapitalist.com and learn about how I can help you.